Women were always thought to have no place in a fight. However, the 20th century demonstrated that not just times but also attitudes toward women and girls altered. Women and girls have served in practically every army throughout the world. They operated as operators at communication hubs, nurses, medics, messengers, and so on and so forth, and the war was no exception for representatives of the beautiful half of humanity who entered it as military personnel. Sadly, many of them could not avoid the fate of being captured by the enemy. What did they go through? Buckle up as we dive into the unspeakable things Nazis did to captured female soldiers. The starting. Female soldiers were important to the armed forces during World War II. Several countries, including the United Kingdom, the United States, and the Soviet Union, allowed women to join their military forces, serving in critical jobs like mechanics, pilots, radio operators, clerks, and nurses. Women's roles were further specialized in the capacity of spies and resistance fighters. The Soviet Union has the most women serving in the armed forces of any country. It is estimated that 800,000 women fought in the Russian forces, with many fighting in combat and others as snipers and pilots. Despite their courage and bravery, any armed soldier in combat runs the risk of getting captured and becoming a prisoner of war. The Nazis took several female soldiers throughout the war, and many of them became famous for their stories and difficulties. Night Witches, an extraordinary all-women fighting squadron known to their foes as the Night Witches, is among the most famous of the entire war. Marina Raskova directly contacted Joseph Stalin and received permission to form female fighting groups when women were forbidden from combat in the Soviet Union. Beginning in late 1941, female aviation units were formed, primarily of volunteers in their late teens and early 20s. The Night Witches. The Night Witches were the 588th Night Bomber Regiment, and their missions demanded a high level of competence in operating well into enemy airspace. The regiment's famed attack strategy was to idle their engines near their targets and glide to the bomb release site using the wind. The sound of this reminded German soldiers of broomsticks, and thus the moniker was formed. The regiment flew for over 30,000 hours during the war and dropped 3,000 tons of bombs. Even though these attacks were extremely difficult, several of the pilots were captured by the Nazis. Following their capture, the brave fighter pilots faced either detention camps or execution. Female combatants. The Nazis' first genuine encounter with women in battle was during the June 1941 invasion of Russia. While the Russians were taken aback by the bold, insane decision of invasion, the Germans were taken aback by their surprise encounter with the Russian forces, namely the presence of many women in their ranks. This had not occurred to the Nazis throughout their conquests and occupations of Poland, France, and Norway. The Nazis reacted to seeing women with rifles and field weaponry with shock and disdain. The aftermath. As a result, any heroic women on the Eastern Front captured by the Nazis had their fate determined, not by high command directives, but through the racist, othering attitudes of Nazi soldiers on the ground, who were horrified at the prospect of women serving in the military. Atrocities committed by the Germans on the Eastern Front? Surprisingly, German soldiers assaulting the Eastern Front would take a stunning 6 million prisoners of war, with roughly half of them dying. At this stage, the Geneva Convention was just a piece of paper, not a beacon of maintained international law. Hundreds of thousands of these detainees were left to starve to death. For an army outfit that prided itself on professionalism, the Nazi forces appeared to be a gang of thugs shaped by ideology. Russian women troops were perhaps the most vulnerable of prisoners of wars, from the perspective of an adversary who could barely comprehend ladies in uniform. Many of the women soldiers faced significant maltreatment as prisoners of wars before their lives were extinguished after being ordered to be shot dead upon arrest. What do you think about the things the Nazis did to the female soldiers? Leave your answers in the comments section below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already.